Welcome everybody, and thank you all for participating today. And today I have the honor of having as our guest Byron Metcalf, who is one of the premier breathwork music composers in the world. And this is a follow-up to a one-on-one interview that I did with him that is available on my YouTube channel. And this is an opportunity for you to ask whatever personal questions you might have of him for the next hour. So again, thank you all for participating, and let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to go to chat to start reading the questions, and then I'll turn it over to Byron to respond. Okay, so here we go. First question.
All right. Hi, everybody.
So Byron, the first question is there music for children, which is for de-stressing their mind and body and good for their concentration? Because today's music for children makes them overwhelmed and sometimes they get out of control.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Actually, that's an interesting question for me personally because I've been dialoguing prior to COVID. I've been working with somebody over overseas international group that are putting together an app for children to help them learn self-regulation and to de-stress and all that kind of stuff. Ages anywhere from 6 to 12, I think was the target audience or group. And they love how my music works, especially that from the Shaman's Heart, the Shaman's Heart program, all kinds of my tracks that are used in breath work, but in this context with, they got some verbal guidance and guided imagery, that kind of thing overlaid on it. It seems to work really well. So, so I would say yes, and like everything here, it's set and setting is everything. So, there's I won't say the name here, but a very, very, very well-known author, best-selling author in the spiritual area, medical doctor. And his son is pretty much overstimulated, that kind of stuff. And he reported to me, he told me that the Shaman's Heart is his favorite, the original Shaman's Heart favorite recording to sleep with. Now that's not something I could sleep with, but but he said he's soothed and he kind of settles and he sleeps well and so there you go.
Okay. And then his second question is that in kindergarten, they have really like inexpensive CD players, and the music quality isn't great. And so he wants to know, what do you think about like little megaphones or something to give better quality music? Does it really matter?
Sure, it matters. Whatever you can do to optimize the quality within the budget you have. Again, I really believe that this whole thing about set and setting, it comes back to that. And if you bring your intention, your awareness to this is what we have to work with, and this will be fine. And and then experiment with it. But I don't get to, I mean, I get hung up on audio and attached to all the high end and pristine audio files and all that kind of stuff myself. But that's not where everybody operates from. I've had great sessions, both one of my first breathwork sessions, not the first, but one of my first after that was just a boombox with some, like really degraded cassette tapes. And it was a mind-blowing thing, it was just so good. So again, context, perspective, you know, uh, but don't get too hung up on the gear. So.
Thanks, Byron. So our next question from Jonathan is, in the interview you mentioned you had a 3-year period using psychedelics for creative inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak more about your protocol around that and how often, what kind of dosage? Was it heroic or half heroic, recreational? And were you working on music for the whole journey or just part? And what was your integration process like? For instance, would the integration be working on a track or idea you started in the medicine space? Were you working on and finishing whole tracks in that expanded state?
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. A point of clarification here. That period, although it became a very creative space for me, and the outcome and the result was all kinds of creativity and understanding regarding the music, that wasn't the focus. The focus was on doing personal healing work, psychodynamic work, psychological work, wounds and traumas, that kind of thing. So I was working in a therapeutic model, and always, I'd say probably less than 2% of the time, I was always working with a guide, qualified guide that I was paying, therapist, or many cases it was in ayahuasca groups. So there was groups when I'm working with ayahuasca. And I worked with MDMA and LSD and 5-MeO and psilocybin mushrooms and ayahuasca, quite a bit of ayahuasca during that time. And the doses for me, I'm very, very sensitive to any kind of medications, no matter what. So doses were never super high, although they're certainly sufficient. I can say that. So if I completely dissolved, into, total ego death, dissolved into, the cosmos, that's sufficient, So I think the highest dose I ever had with mushrooms was 3 grams, and the highest dose of LSD was 250. It's impossible to measure ayahuasca, of course. Highest dose of MDMA was 150, if I recall, something like that. And yeah, so hopefully that's helpful. So during that personal healing work, during that time, I wasn't going in with the intention to create music or explore my creativity. It came as a byproduct and informed me. My intention was always healing and really connecting with myself, healing anxiety, healing trauma, and that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Byron. The next question from Sarah is, for those of us who are music newbies, is there any fun way to play with sounds, not for making studio quality releases, but just for having fun?
Oh, sure. With the technology today, if you got an iPhone or any kind of, you can download apps to record, that you can record multi-tracks, just through the microphone on your phone. Just set it up on a little tripod kind of thing, and have fun. I mean, that's fun. People are doing it all the time. They have the same kind of apps and programs for laptops and tablets, and it's amazing what's possible now. So yeah, and you can get a lot of that stuff free. So if you're just newbie, get in there and explore and have fun with it. And there's all kinds of YouTube videos that help instruct and give you guidance and that kind of thing. So yeah, go for it.
Okay, next question from Jonathan. Do you think samples of shamanic instruments like bowls, didgeridoo, chimes, etc., are less effective than live recordings, especially when a producer is starting out and may not have access to instruments or good miking or a studio setup?
Well, it's going to be depending on the quality of the samples. There's samples that in the high-end software that we have now, the synthesizers, the VST, virtual instruments they're called, and the samplers in those professional amps, the samples in there are just totally remarkable. I mean, they're just you absolutely can't tell. Whether it was recorded, because it was recorded in a studio, and these are high, 24-bit samples, all that kind of stuff. So that's where that's really gonna be your reference point there. Is what are the quality of the samples you're getting and how are you using it? So always using it in the highest, resolution you can, and sampling rate when you're creating something, and you can get some amazing stuff, But what I can tell you is that the samples you're going to get for free are not going to be that good. Most of them are going to be MP3s, and if they're WAV files, they're not, they're not that well recorded. So I've checked some of that stuff out myself. So be prepared to pay for some decent samples, and you'll get some good results. Yeah.
Okay, and then his second question is, could you expand on writing music that is heart-centered, especially tracks for the breakthrough session in breath
Mhm.
work? It can be challenging to find songs that have heart and the right energy to fit into a set.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, that's one of my favorite areas to talk about. Yeah. So, working on heart, I was really throughout my life, I was really challenged with pretty profound anxiety, and my my anxiety response was always a closing up to the heart center. They're very tight and constricted and contracted. So in my healing work and therapies and various things, and especially with the psychedelic work and the breath work, I really was focusing on opening my heart, first opening, working with it, healing, the wounds that were there and all of that. So I feel like I know a lot about working with the heart and how that comes through music. So the idea for me as a percussionist, as a drummer, creating music that always has heart. In other words, if there's challenging music, for me, when I'm creating it, there always has to be some element in there that is holding the heart and supporting the heart center, even if it's coming at you with just real intensity. With that, if the heart is there, then you can really meet it, and that's how MDMA works. So I mean, that concept is how I approach it. Now getting to the specific of the question, yes, it is hard finding the breakthrough, or what we used to call breakout, uh, pieces, tracks, for that area, that sequence of a breathwork session. It is hard. And where I found mine mostly were within film soundtracks. So when I was doing a lot of breath work, always it was the film soundtracks because they could score. For example, if you look at, let's see, what am I thinking about? Last of Mohicans. That's a good example. During battle scenes in there, the music that was scored was full adagio, nothing but heart. Even there was all this kind of rhythmic stuff going on. This quality of heart just right in the center of it. And so that can help you understand the kind of tracks you're looking for, the kind of music you need to support people coming through like that, and being able to really go through something that's really challenging and hard and have your heart open. And so that, we could do a week on just that topic. So, and I appreciate it. So hopefully that's helpful. Yeah.
Okay. And then a question from Tomer is, hi, Byron. Are you aiming at creating specific types of experiences when you compose different pieces? And if so, what are some of those experiences?
Hmm. Hmm. Let me consider that a second. Uh, yeah, read that question again because
Oh, sure.
I really want to dial into that
Okay.
in the center of it.
So are you aiming at creating specific types of experiences when you compose different pieces? And if so, what are some of those experiences?
Oh, okay, okay. So the short answer would be no. I'm not aiming to create specific kinds of experiences. To create, that's the key word there. What I am doing is creating with the intention to support certain ranges of experiences. For example, very tribal, intense, tribal, in your face drumming section is just for that. The kind of experiences like you either go with it or you need to get out of the room kind of thing. That level of intensity, it's just you can tolerate it or not. And so that's the kind of thing I go for with that. So certain tracks will be obviously be oriented towards, if it's in a breathwork session, uh, towards these getting really activated and really kind of in the induction phase is what I call it. Really going in and going through those first or several layers of resistance that may be there, and different defenses or contraction, that kind of just opening that up. And so the music is designed, especially with the percussion, to help just push through that. And the rattles that I use have the ability to really cut through that. See, there's the pushing and there's the cutting. The rattles can be like a Lily's mini jackhammer kind of things, you know. Just that's the idea sonically, you know, the sonic jackhammer, but done with the intention of supporting and healing as opposed to damaging, you know. So you get it, yeah. So hopefully that's helpful, yeah. This is fun. This is fun. I love talking about this stuff, man. So thank you for the questions. And I'm needing to drink quite a bit of liquid here. I'm in the high desert of Prescott Valley, Arizona, 5,000 feet. And right now we've had some warm weather. It's cool, but warm for the season. And so the juniper and the cedar are just, the allergy stuff is wearing me out. So I'm clearing my throat a lot and all that. So that's what that's about. Yeah.
Okay, then our next question from John is, do you sell pre-recorded breathwork tracks for facilitators to use in sessions?
No, I don't. No, I've never done that. It's you know, it's just a copyright violation. So if I were doing my own, if it was just my own music, but you know, that's not really the holotropic model. So you know, it'd be more my model, the whole shamanic, but I still don't. You know, I still don't do that. I mean, I've put together some, occasionally put together some sequences or sessions on Spotify for people to kind of check out, you know, for just, but it's not really, that's that trajectory of a holotropic journey, you know, the holotropic session. So, yeah.
And then Barbara asked, do you have CDs for sale?
Oh boy, I've got a lot of CDs for sale. Best place to go to is Bandcamp. You can come to me personally, but at Bandcamp, my Bandcamp site, and that page, you know, if you purchase something, if you want a CD, you're also going to get the download in whatever format you want. So for the same price. So it's great, you know, and so go there, go to Byron Metcalf /bandcamp.com, I think it is, right?
I think it's dot or whatever, but,
Dot,
but if they just go
okay.
to bandcamp.com, then they can just punch your name in and it'll pop up.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Steve asks, what makes a piece of music breathwork music? How to select music for personal practice?
Oh, well, boy, that's a wide ranging question. You know, and music is subjective, you know, so, but you want it to be emotional. You want it to resonate, you know, you're going to resonate with certain pieces of music that other people won't. So that's where the subjectivity comes in. And so, you know, my advice is just experiment with that stuff. You know, you've maybe done a few sessions with Michael or somebody else, and then you kind of have an idea how it goes, and then just start experimenting, putting things together, see what works for you, see what you respond to, and just go from there. You know, that's how I learned to do it. I mean, you know, there was all these different kinds of models, and people, you know, everybody who puts together every facilitator is their music's gonna be radically different. I've breathed with really qualified, really skilled facilitators that I didn't care for the music set at all. You know, I just didn't. That wasn't my thing. You know, I didn't really. You know, there was a piece or two in there that I liked, but you know, that's okay. Other people love it. So, and sometimes, you know, a piece of music that you really don't like can be just great. Not that you would choose, but you know, if you're in a workshop or individual session with somebody facilitating, and there's a piece of music that's really making you agitated, boy, you know that's what you need. Just breathe into that, go into that, and deal with the agitation, because it's not about the music. I've got a great story about that if you want to take the time to do it. When I was in a training, excuse me. we were in Dahlonega, Georgia. That's where I was certified with Stan and Christina and Jacqueline Small at the time. I was certified in the second large group that they did. And this was just before the certification. It was a week-long training, residential thing at this retreat center. And the the guy who was doing the music, his name Greg Zalaka. He was married to Jacqueline Small at the time. He used to do great music. I liked his music set. He and Tav used to put together stuff all the time. And so this was in the dead of summer, it's July or something like that, up in Dahlonega, Georgia, hot and just hot and humid and not my thing. But anyway, so we were there, and I was doing a breath work. It was my turn. I was breathing, and I heard what I swore was a Christmas music. It was, and it maybe I mean I really I got so agitated, and I was just all over the place with it. And after the session, I just marched up to Greg and said, "What the hell are you doing playing Christmas music in July?" And he said, "What are you talking about?" And so he showed me the list. Of course, there was no Christmas music in there. So, my projection onto that was really just so rich. That was so rich for me to work with. It just gave me it was a great teaching, and it was a healing for me too. So, yeah, so those are some great stories, that many of you I know have probably heard, but anyway, I won't go on about that one. Let's go to the next question.
Thanks, Byron. Yeah, and so the Bandcamp site is byronmetcalf.bandcamp.com.
Yeah,
Bandcamp,
great. Thank you.
Bandcamp.
Mhm.
And Therese has a question. How do we as facilitators acquire permission from you to use your music in our set lists?
As long as you're not selling it or putting it online, you have my permission. I create this music for healing work. And it was the breath work that got me into creating this kind of music. So this is, for me, it's sacred reciprocity. So as long as you're using this, not recording it or giving it away or selling it, and when I say not recording it and giving it away to somebody, recording it for your own, your own sets that you use in your own workshops and whatever, you have my blessings. And give me credits whenever it happens and send people if they want to buy the music. I appreciate that, but that's not a requirement. So, yeah.
Thanks, Byron. And Byron, is that also on albums or CDs where you work with somebody else, or you're just now talking about where you
Yeah,
your
yeah.
own?
Any of my collaborations with Steve Roach, we're on board with that kind of thing. Where we need to draw the line is when you're, putting it up on YouTube or you have some other thing that's starting to be monetized or is making money for somebody else and not us. But within the workshop settings, or even a presentation, at a seminar, if you're giving a talk, doing an imagery or something, or doing, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah. So Steve Roach and Dosh Mesh and Mark Seelig, all of us. I mean, this is, we need all the help we can get to heal, we're transform and wake up here, so.
And then a question from Sarah says, "Hi, Byron. I understand that you have so many years of music creation that you can use your intuition to guide you in your music selection. How would you describe your selection and trajectory of pieces in a breathwork session? How do you choose each song and know they will flow well together?"
Mm. Well, I've done it enough to know that certain songs, like maybe there's 10 options for this particular 15-minute segment of wherever we are in the trajectory of the session. And, I let's say I know that those will work. Now, which ones will work best? That's when I just trust my intuition. When I choose a session, when I go, I usually go when I meditate, I get in, I just ask for spirit to come through and to guide, it's just guidance. And so I'll choose a piece of music and do it that way. And sometimes I'll find out later, that wasn't such a good choice. And so I'll use that to inquire into, wonder why. And more often than not, it's just, hey, it just didn't work. Something wasn't resonating, and I was going for it. You know, I don't want to overanalyze that stuff. But at this point, I completely trust my, you know, I've been doing this for 30 years. So I can, you know, I can just choose something. I trust my intuition, you know, and so, yeah.
Okay, and then we have a question from Patrick, who says, hello, Byron, Bam. in,
Yeah. Hi, Patrick.
in the prior interview with Michael, when he asked if you breathed to your own music to check it out, you said, by now I know. Could you say more about how you got to the point where you can say that? And obviously the main answer could be practice over time, but maybe there have been some best practices that you've discovered along the way. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, especially, you know, given for breath work. I mean, being a drummer and, you know, doing all this stuff, you know, this stuff works. And I know when it works because of the long, you know, I know how to create. You need to do longer tracks, first of all. Short tracks, you know, you need the process to develop, you know. So I rarely use a track in breath work that's under 6 or 8 minutes, particularly in the openings where those drumming tracks are, because the brain needs to entrain into what that's about. So that takes some time, you know. But again, this intuitive process, I just kind of know. You know, I don't have to. I will sometimes breathe or you know, use some cannabis sometimes, then journey to my music just to see what it's like in that world. But I guess the main point is that it's I don't need to do that. Sometimes I do it just because I'm guided to do it and feel like doing it. But at this point, you know, I know what works. I know what's going to work. I know when the tempos are there. I know how the sonics are balanced, what the mixes are, and the frequencies, and you know, all of the elements and components that are in it. It's just a knowing that comes from years and years and years of doing this. You know, I've been in the music business for over 60 years. So, and I've been doing this kind of thing for 30. So, yeah. So, and I'm really grateful. You know, I don't say, oh, I know how to do this. I mean, it's just something I look at it as a maturation process, you know, and keep maturing with it. Like, I don't know if this is the best analogy, like a great wine, you know. I've heard people talk about a Cabernet that just gets alive and alive and alive over time, you know. I mean, I don't know. I trust those experts. I know a lot of people up in Napa and Sonoma, and they talk about it, you know. I know I've got a vineyard owner who makes wine at, you know, it's $100 a bottle. So they know what they're talking about, but they've been doing that for 40, 50 years. So it's maturing. So using that analogy or the metaphor of maturation is a really good way to think about it.
Okay, and then we have a question from Steve. How do you avoid cultural appropriation when combining sacred music such as karo whistling, didgeridoo, etc., into Western music?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been, gosh, from the beginning, I've been very, very attentive to that. And so I bring a respect, a personal respect and sensitivity to how I create music. And that way, when I'm utilizing didgeridoos or Native American flutes or the Huasca sounds and things like that that I'll incorporate sometimes. They're coming, you know, they're coming with respect through us. And I never try to create something that is, let's say, let's do a native piece. See, I mean, that's never, ever. In fact, I resist that like the plague. So I think my respect, I actually was a graduate advisor for a student doing a master's degree in counseling psychology, where we really went into this topic a lot. And I've talked to Sandra Ingerman about it too, because she really is one who's really kind of models the respect and being appropriate with this. And so, it's really just, this is what this is, and this is who I am not. See, I am not this. I'm not going to be a wannabe Native American over here, and dancing around the rocks in Sedona, because there's a lot of people who do that, and it really turns me off. I don't worry about that piece. I don't have to think about it because it's just kind of integrated into how I am and who I am at this point. And if I feel like the music is starting to drift too much to where that might be felt or projected on, I can shift it. I'll pull back from that. I said, it's just getting a little too much in that. So.
Okay, thank you, Byron. And then we have a question from Patrick. Another question, after the warm-up of intense music, there is the more emotional music. And Michael always makes amazing tracks which culminate to this moment of complete ecstatic release. Can you say more about the build-up to and the creation of to that point of climax?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's not the area, that's not, the music I create wouldn't be used in that. I don't know, I think Michael would agree there. My music doesn't typically go there. So again, for me, I'm looking for intensity, drama, emotion, something in there, but always full of heart. If I'm choosing music, looking for a track that's going to bring that in. The heart always has to be there. But, and stay away from, avoid the stuff that gets a little too dark, and if you're looking at film music and stuff, some of it just kind of, if you feel yourself contracting and kind of bracing, choose something else, so, hopefully that can, that's the hardest part, that area of breathwork session, creating a music session is the most challenging, because not everybody's going to be in that place at that same time, and some people will never be in that place, that's going to come at the end of the session, where they're really kind of having that breakthrough or resolution, but we have a trajectory, we have a timeline and all that, so the sequence, there's going to be tracks of music going to be there, and we do the best we can with it. And sometimes it's great, other times, not so great.
Okay, and then Jonathan asks, do you have sample packs for sale?
No, I don't. No. I've been approached to, create loops and create grooves and that kind of stuff, but it's never been something I wanted to get into. So, if people want the stuff to work with some of my stuff, then they hire me to create whatever it is they want. But I don't have packs or, any of that.
Okay, and then a question from Glenn. Byron, how much little does your knowledge of brain waves, i.e. alpha, theta, etc., impact your composing of breathwork music?
Not at all. That's a whole different, way to work with music, sound, and sound technologies. I know from the rhythms what kind of, the patterns and the rhythms that are going on with the drumming in that first hour, basically what kind of brainwave, activity is going to be going on for most people. But that's not, in a breathwork session, that's really a non-issue for me. It's not even a question I think about, so, yeah.
And then a question from Deanna. What tempos are used throughout the breathwork?
Well, any and all of them almost. It depends on where you're going to be. Sometimes it's just ambient space toward the end. It's not going to be tempo based, no rhythms at all. Sometimes just just ambient, just no structure to it, just flowing. And of course, on the first parts of it, you want the tempo to be up. The shamanic tempos are typically anywhere from 180 beats per minute to 240, 250, somewhere in there. So, and then there's subdivisions of those. If you got something at 200 beats a minute, then you're going to also have polyrhythms that are going at 150 and 150, that kind of thing, and they all work together. But the main tempo may be that 200 or whatever it needs to be. But how do you breathe? And that's where you establish, think about it. If the tempo is just right, you're going, or even faster, so, so I try to keep it in a range. The stuff I work with for the slow stuff is going to be 40 and 80 subdivisions of that on the slow end, and then up into about maybe the 240, 260 at the top. Yeah.
Okay, and then a question from Sarah. Did you ever know or connect with Brew Joy, who lived and worked in Paulden teaching heart initiation, sacred community, and other mystery school teachings?
No, but I was at his place after he sold it. I did actually TAV and let's see, it was GTT. They did an advanced training there, and I helped coordinate it out there. Paul is not, well, it's about an hour from me, and it was fantastic. But Brew Oil had long gone by that time. But nice story about that is that the retreats in Yucca Valley. I forget what's that big retreat center there that we did all the breathworks at. I can't recall the name of it.
Joshua Tree Retreat Center.
Yeah, I guess it was before that. It was something else. But anyway, but they had purchased Brew Joy's sound system with these great big wall of subwoofers and all these big radial horns and all this. That thing was just so loud and so big. But we had big groups there. So I had the pleasure of doing the music for two of the Insights and opening retreats with the Jack Cornfield and Stan and everybody. 160 people that's what we maxed out at. I mean, we couldn't do any more than that. So working with that sound system was great. And dialing it in, because I would augment it with my own mixers and this kind of thing so that I could really, really fine tune it. But it was a treat. But, the answer is no, I never did meet Brew Joy, but I know lots of people who worked with him. Yeah.
Okay, and then a question from Glenn. Hello, Byron. Do you have any fun, interesting stories you feel inspired about your experiences with Stan and the Groff training during the 80s?
Oh, wow. Yeah, lots. Let's see, at the certification month long, we did a month, that's when I'm still doing month long, 28 days. And this was in Dahlonega, Georgia. And I remember one of the most powerful, we're breathing and we're teaching and breathing, the teaching breathing. It's just incredible. And there was about maybe 140 people there. Not everybody was getting there. This included all facilitators and floaters, and some guests that Stan had brought in from then Russia, Soviet Union still, and so psychiatrists, two psychiatrists, a psychologist, and two psychologists, two psychiatrists. So there's four, and so they were just intrigued by Stan's work, and they were there to just observe and get to know the work better. There's a woman that I was actually sitting for. We were breathing. She was a professional from Canada. She was getting certified, and I was happy to be her sitter during this session. She went into one of these very dark, what seems like a demonic kind of real dark place. It was eerie and scary, and this is when the hair is standing on the back of your neck, and these sounds are coming out. And she was a very very attractive woman, real soft features, but this was like something out of The Exorcist. And there was an odor and smell that was coming that was really for those of us who had never witnessed anything like that, and I was one of them, it was just really unnerving and pretty unimaginable almost. Stan came over and started working with her, and for a few hours, and this was going on and on, and these sounds that were coming out of her were otherworldly for sure. And it had finally, as it always does with Stan, it resolved into this beautiful, peaceful place. And it didn't take all day, it took a while, but well, so in the sharing session that evening, we were breaking up well, where to get, I'm with her, of course, because I was her sitter. But these psychiatrists, these Soviet Union professionals were there in that group. This happened to be to observe. And this psychiatrist was still shaking. He was literally nervous and shaking. And he said, you have killed the psychiatrist in me, because he could not grok at all that was possible, that kind of a state, that intense of an experience, extreme, the most extreme thing you can imagine, could resolve, and just so beautiful. And the woman didn't remember any of it. She was in a blissful place, just blissed out, smiling. Her eyes were bright. Her skin was just beautiful. It was really an amazing thing. So there's lots of stories like that. There's lots of stories, but that's one of my favorites because it's so dramatic and also correlates, with the stuff that Stan talks about in some of his LSD work. What was it, Flora? Was that one? I'm not sure if that's the right name. I think it was Flora in his when he was working at the Maryland Psychiatric Research Center, and there was a kind of demonic kind of stuff going on, and resolved. Yeah. So.
And then Zoe's question is, are some music journeys potentially meant to follow and address the emotional blocks from lower chakras all the way up the spine to higher ones? For example, root security, fears, scary, intense music, then second chakra, water element, etc. Or that energy journey would be completely subjective and not at all pre-planned?
Well, you certainly could put together a session like that, but that doesn't mean that the trajectory of the session is going to follow it. I think it's fine to experiment with this stuff like that, but not to try to direct it in any way. Just say, yeah, I'd like to experiment with that. That's how I started experimenting with more shamanic pieces in my breathwork sessions, and how my own, I evolved through my research and everything else from the pure holotropic model to holoshamanic. It was experimenting. I was just experimenting, I was experimenting with themes. To see if set and setting would carry a theme, and sure enough, it does. If you set a topic for a workshop, and you're really kind of holding that topic as a theme, more often than not, that's what's going to be. People are going to be reporting experiences that are connected to that theme. A great example of that was I did a workshop, a breath work with Steve Roach's wife, Linda Kahonov, is a world-renowned equine therapist. She's written several books on equine therapy and healing with horses and all of that. And she does these week-long workshops, and she brought me in to help facilitate a breath work during one of her trainings. Well, it was predominantly women. There was about 20 people, and there might have been 3 men, 3 males. So the energy was distinctly the goddess, and the divine feminine was just dominant in that space. It was really beautiful. But to a person, every single person, their mandalas and their experiences reflected their relationship with the horses and the equine and the archetypes of every single one of them, and so you can experiment. Getting back to the main question here, you can experiment if you bring the intention, just the intention, into the set and setting with a musical journey. See where it goes. Don't try to set it up too much. Don't try to script it. just say, the music is going to follow this. Just go with whatever comes. And let's see. Document this stuff. That's how you learn about it and what works, what doesn't work. What do you bring to it? What are you feeling when a certain piece of music, if you're a facilitator, what are you feeling? What's your emotional state when a certain piece of music is playing? That's part of the set and setting. That's having an influence in some way. It's part of the field. Your emotional state, every part of that. So it's important to be present with it, be aware of it, breathe, keep the field open, transparent, and clear.
Okay, and then we have a question from Harald, which is, sometimes to me, some of the tracks sound like a battlefield, especially the shouting and stuff. That always makes me think I want to dive deep into my intuition and not start seeing brutal killing scenes. What's the purpose of your associations with this crying and shouting?
Well, everybody's going to respond to it differently. I don't like. Let me back up from that and address it a little differently. I personally don't care for music that has some direct kind of, okay, this is battle scenes or yelling or that kind of stuff. I never put that in there. We do some chants and things like that, but that's just adding voice at a certain frequency that kind of holds it. I remember I can't remember the album now, but some of the trance dance folks, they did some pretty cool music for breathwork. But there were, kind of the music was going. They were going on every 8 bars or something. Breathe. That makes me want to get up and scream at them. It's just, no, you don't need to do. I guess if you're dancing, maybe that's helpful. But in a breath work, or especially a psychedelic session, you don't want to have that kind of just overt kind of, it's what's the word? It's scripted, but it's just, it's too mechanical. It's too set up. So it's not my thing for sure. You could tell that. Yeah. So.
Okay, and then we have a question from Natalia. First, deep gratitude. I adore your music and use it with my HB groups and in my personal practice, both breathwork and even yoga. It doesn't have that tweet of new agey music I really dislike, that more like entertaining.
Yeah.
Your music invites you from within those realms. My question is where the most of this depth and richness comes from transpersonal realms, non-ordinary states, or non-ordinary states of yours, or from your head, from experimenting with mixing the tracks, different instruments, natural sounds, or from all of these channels. Then what contributes the most? What's the proportion between each of those sources, if you will? And in other words, does it come to you from those transpersonal realms, or do you create it in your mind?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'll start with that last couple of questions there. Yeah, it's coming through. It's really, I'm trusting the muse and guidance and spirit to, similar to choosing that piece of music. It's intuition, but there's also a skill set that I bring to it. Certain frequencies, need to, that they might clash, and so you need to work with that with the software and the equalization and the different effects and all that kind of thing. But if it has to move my heart, my soul. I mean, if it's not doing something for me, then I'm putting it aside, or I'll put it aside, come back to it, and see why wasn't it working for me, and then I'll explore that. But I don't do it necessarily through my head. I have to use the head center at times to analyze certain things. Like, okay, well, it sounds like this frequency is interacting with that frequency, and I'll need to go in there in a clinical way, and find that. So see if that's what's going on. And oftentimes, I'll adjust some things, and then where I've when I know it's working is when it touches me here and in the belly. See, when it's there's a physical thing that happens, and so I'm just exploring and experimenting, and there's no formula other than to be present, breathe, be present, and when I'm sitting at the console or I'm playing, but she's talking about more how I'm putting all this together. And I agree about the some of the quote unquote new age. I hate that term, but my music actually that's the only genre category. The world music and world fusion, but some of the meditative stuff is going to go in the new age bins. That's where you're going to find it new age radio. But some of it is just just I can't hardly stand it. Just I call it pablum. It's just there's no. And so, but if it's stirring me, if it captures my heart, I don't care, As I remember, I think I told you, Michael, in the interview, a country song. I grew up, I was singer songwriter stuff, and so I have that history, and I love great songwriting. Great great song that can really inspire, just open my heart. I move by it. It brings up some emotion. And how do I take that? How do I recreate, somehow express that with a drum, see, or rhythms, or a combination of rhythms and sounds? And I'm really grateful that I have that wide range of inspiration to draw on. But if it doesn't move me and light me up, then what's the point? Change the channel. So, yeah. Change the CD, whatever it happens to be. Yeah.
Okay, and then the next question from Yuki, you've already addressed. I'll just read it out though. It's she asked about setting specific intentions before you start creating sets. Okay. I think you already spoke about that.
Okay.
And then Barbara, I'm newer to this community. Does Byron create the music and then Michael organizes it into breathwork sessions, or does Byron put the whole thing together? And Barbara, I can answer that. Byron has, how many CDs do you have now?
With all the collaborations, I don't know, there's close to 20. Maybe.
Yeah, so Byron has a tremendous library of music that's extremely effective in breathwork sets. Primarily in the first part of the set when people are kind of going in and getting into this kind of trance state. So I use some of his tracks in certain parts of the set. So, but there's sets that I create, and then Byron also creates his own sets where he uses partially his own music and partially other music. And then. A question from Donna. Could you please explain why you wouldn't use dark music, like all distractions is shutting down less of an experience?
Okay. The darker music, I find, can cause people to brace a little bit. It feels threatening in a way that causes us to defend. So the idea is if it's challenging, to be able to lean into it. If I feel like, I'm not sure about this kind of an ominous place, then if the music has some heart, there's an invitation to rise up into it, to face it, to lean into it, to inquire into what is this, as opposed to going, oh shit, I don't know if I can deal with this. So when I'm talking about dark music, I'm talking about music that really lacks any of that heart-centered quality. There has to be something there that's friendly enough. See, that and that can be subtle, and not even, you almost have to tease it out sometimes to see what it is. But I tend to know it because my heart the heart center will resonate with it in some way. And that's when I know it's okay. This is challenging, but this can work, because the last thing I want to do is put on something that's just going to make people go, so. Yeah.
The next question is from Krista. Have you ever scored films? Seems useful to guide audience breath pattern for more impact during pivotal scenes.
No, I haven't. Steve Roach and I just finished a couple of videos, not filmed. Well, it's film, but it's art. It's fractal art. There's one Brenda Malloy is just this amazing visionary artist using fractals. Excuse me, and she hired Steve and I. I had worked with her already, but she hired Steve and I to put together some music for a couple of her videos. Fractal Presence was the first one. It's a 28-minute piece. And then there's one coming out the 15th of this month called Spun Light. And that's a 10-minute piece. And you can find that, Brenda Malloy. And anyway, that's, my music's been used in films and especially documentaries. But nothing major because it's more, National Geographic kind of things that, are people doing documentary stuff and the nature and that kind of thing. But I've never scored like full film or anything like that. Yeah. Like to, that'd be great,
Okay, and then comments from Glenn and Will saying that you need to write a memoir.
I've been told that, for years, people have been really encouraging me to write that book, as I said. And so, and I thought about it, but, even contacted a ghostwriter because I knew I'd never stay with it, doing it myself, But, there's so much there, and it's, I keep encountering places of, there's resistance, but there's places that say it's more about timing. So it may not happen, but it's a great idea because I've got some great stories. I've been really blessed, and my life has been pretty, I've been just been at the right place at the right time. There's a lot of grace in my life, and so as a result, there's been some fantastic experiences and things happened, and meet some cool people, and all of that. So, but anyway, but thanks for that. Yeah, I like the encouragement to do it. Who knows? One day say, okay, that's it. I'm going to do it. Yeah, so.
Okay, and then we have a comment from Sarah, said, "This is so amazing to hear from you, Byron. Thank you so much. I'm deeply grateful."
Thank you.
And then Will said, "We need a new genre label, transformational or holotropic."
Yeah. Well, Oscar Miro Casada was the first one that used the term that I work in the transformational arts. Oscar he's a Peruvian shaman, and we've done some stuff together. Just a beautiful guy. He's got this great training program. He's a real deal. To talk about a shaman. Ooh, this guy. And so he's spent time in the studio here and recorded some of his rituals and songs and things. And yeah, transformational arts. So I like that a lot. And
then we have a question from Glenn. Byron, can people buy every one of your CDs like in a package?
No. Let's see, there's a couple that are out of print, so there's only digital. But if you're saying, can you buy all the CDs in a package? The only package, I mean, I don't have it put together, but I could put together, what I have. So, but on Bandcamp, they make it available to it's not all the albums I'm involved in, but there's, I'm not sure how many albums. You can buy the entire digital catalog that's on Bandcamp for a discounted price. So, yeah.
Great. And then we have a comment from Darlene, who said, in regards to the previous chat about the music that has some shouting in it, I absolutely love those pieces and they intensify my experience and create breakthroughs for me. Mm-hmm. So I think basically that everybody responds differently. And
yeah.
And, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I'm, when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm talking about primarily my own experience, but it's also, it's also informed by the people I've worked with and what I see there. And I also know that because of what I mentioned earlier about set and setting, if I don't like a piece of music, if I think it's too dark, it's probably going to be. See, and that's gonna translate. That's gonna be felt in the field in some way. Maybe not cognitively. There's a cognitive awareness of it or conscious awareness, but so use what works. I don't care what it is. You know, that's because I mean, if it works, it works. So
Okay, and then we have, let's see here, go down. Oh, a comment from Glenn. Byron, I love the CDs you've put out with Jennifer Grace. Can we
grace.
expect more of your collaborative work with her in the future?
I don't know. We kind of covered the ground that we wanted to cover. So you're kind of, there's a moment in time. In this case, it was a couple of years. We just did the one album, and that was that first album, They Were Here, I'd been wanting to work with Jennifer for a decade, and it finally happened. And and it was magical. I mean, it's just such magic in the studio. I mean, she's so incredible. I mean, she steps up the way we would work. None of this is planned. We have some grooves, some basic drum grooves, and we had a key picked out. So there's a drone just for pitch reference, right? And then we'll do some ritual, we'll do some smudging and a little prayer, meditation, and invite our guides in. And then I'd hit record, she'd step up to the mic, and this stuff just starts coming through. It's just, I was sitting at the console, recording this with the headphones, listening to her sing with tears in my eyes, It was just, I said, what? And so we thought it would be just that one album. And then I got inspired by an idea that became Sacrament. And so that was going to originally be a prayer to the earth, but it evolved into what it is. And so we did that one, and we're kind of, Jennifer has her own life. She works with horses as well and does a lot of wonderful stuff. She's an incredible healer, and if you can imagine that voice coming at you when you're on a table or laying down, and she's working with you with her rattles and drums and stuff and singing like that. I mean, it's just a healing experience for sure. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Byron. And from Natalia, it's such a joy to hear you talking. I just admire your authenticity. You are just as your beautiful music, so heart-centered. Thanks, deep, deep gratitude.
Oh, well,
Natalia.
thank you.
And then from Therese, would you recommend CDs being played at high volume to digital copies? Oh, sorry, to digital copies for live workshops and sessions?
Well, there's a couple of elements in there I want to address. High volume, you want to make sure that you're not, working in a volume that can be harmful to the ears. And it takes less than you could imagine. So when I was at those loud systems, the Brujoy system at Yucca Valley, it was incredibly loud. And so I brought a sound meter with me because your ears, they'll adjust and adapt to it. And so it's like increased tolerance. And that's exactly what it is. So you want to be cautious and careful about where you're taking that, because it's there can be like an explosion kind of, a loud sound, but it's the constant sound at even lower volumes that can start being harmful. So there's that piece. But if it's a WAV file or a CD, there's the same resolution and same sonic quality, all other components being equal. So, or a FLAC file, if it's a digital file, if it's FLAC, non-lossy, or lossless, they call it. WAV file, AIF file, which is the Mac Apple proprietary equivalent of that. then you're in good, it doesn't matter. I use both in my sessions. I'll have some digital stuff going on. I'll have some, pre-recorded things, all at that level, maybe on my laptop. And then, then a couple CD players that I'm weaving the stuff in and out, if I've got the time. If I'm on the floor working with people, then I just have to let the session play. But I like it when I can kind of choose and try to work what I'm getting from the room.
And then just a couple of comments. One from Barbara said, "This is so interesting. Thanks for your time." And also from Steve,
My pleasure.
Steve, thank you. Very grateful for your generosity and heart. And then Darlene said, "Byron, I really appreciate you sharing your journey of healing your heart through music and breathwork. It really resonated with me. I was wondering which of your CDs you would recommend for the most powerful heart healing."
Powerful heart healing. Boy, again, it becomes subjective. But the shaman's heart was designed with a heartbeat, to stay connected to your heart throughout, the original shaman's heart. Now, the shaman's heart 2 is just a longer, it's similar and different in the same tempos that builds and builds and builds with complexity, rhythmic complexity and dynamic intensity. Both heart-centered with the heartbeat, boom, 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 at 55 beats per minute. I created with, in fact, I can reach, I've got it right here. Let me show you. I created it with this guy. This is a Mexican clay pot. I don't know if you can hear that, but. So anyway, so I had that idea. I've got all kinds of reports from people. That CD sold really well. Probably my best-selling CD, because there was a hemisync version of it as well that won some awards. So it's really out there. And so there's, as a result, there's a lot of reports and reviews and feedback that I've gotten from it. And so healing your heart, that's a good one for sure. I tend to like my inner rhythm meditations series. There's 2 of those because there are slower tempos that allow you to just kind of go in there. Persistent Visions. Mark Seelig and I put that together with. There's a lot of people in the psychedelic therapy and the psychedelic, that community, those communities and that world that use our music. And we know that. And so, because they tell us. So even in some of the research, they're using it. So Persistent Visions was put together within, it's condensed, but that was put together with really the MDMA session in mind. And also Winds of Spirit was similar, or is similar, although the tempo doesn't change in that one. But it really is centered in the heart throughout. And nice and long, you got 70 minutes of just uninterrupted listening time with all of those, with the ones I mentioned.
Okay, thanks, Byron. We have just 1 or 2 more questions and then we'll complete. And
Okay.
so the first one is from Jonathan. What are your favorite artists working in a similar transformational space that you have not worked with already?
Oh, wow. Well, there's a few drummers. Greg Ellis is probably, he's a master, world-class player. He does meditation music. He does everything. But it'd be pretty amazing to work with him. Who else that I haven't worked with? Robert Rich is similar to Steve Roach, synthesizer player, but a really different style, but certainly as gifted and skillful. Let me think. There's some singers there. I know. I always wanted to work with Carlos Nakai, and Nawang Ketchog. And I was introduced to Nawang Ketchog. He did, if those of you doing breath work, if you don't have the album Karuna, get it. It's there's a couple tracks out there that's just unbelievable, just so incredible, and the closing track is just so heartfelt. So, but Nawang Ketchog would be an amazing. Yeah, there's there's so many that yeah. So yeah.
Okay, and then we have just one last question, and then just a couple thank yous I'll read out, and that is just, would you be willing to give a quick view of your studio with your webcam?
Well, I've got my laptop. It's all kind of. I don't think you would see it that well, but I'll move. See, I'm on my laptop, not a webcam. So I'll see. I don't know if you can, but I can't give you a
Yeah,
tour.
we can see it. It's good.
Yeah, I can't really give you a tour, but I can move this around a little bit, and I don't know. Let me see. It's a mess right now because I've been really being creative here. So I've been in here just working on, here's all the udus and the clay pots and drums and things, and hopefully that's about as good as I can do at this point. Yeah. So am I still here? Okay.
Yep, you're still here. Thanks, Byron.
Where did I go? Yeah.
Okay, and then I'll just read out a couple thank yous for you. And first, Glenn said, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so deeply grateful for all that you have contributed to the holotropic community and beyond.
Oh, yeah.
And then from Simon,
well, it changed my life, in such a big way. Stan's work in this model, the most influence, I've had a lot of great teachers, worked with a lot of people, but Stan Groff is the most influential teacher I've ever had. I mean, he just, yeah. So it doesn't get any bigger than that, and more important than that. Yeah. So.
And then from Saimi says, thank you, Byron. I'm very inspired and touched to get to know more about you and your work today. So beautiful the way you have been sharing your talent, essence, and amazing heart to permeate healing and love into the world. Deeply grateful.
Thank you.
And then from Darlene, thank you for your recommendations and demo of the heartbeat. I'll try those. Much love. And then Lori said, Byron, thanks for your time and generosity. It would be great to see a documentary or video of you in action making this beautiful, heartfelt music.
Well, I've been thinking about that because Steve Roach has got, he's doing a SoundQuest Fest. It's going to be an online because COVID has shut down, all concerts and everything else. And so he's doing a three-day, what's called SoundQuest Fest. And so it's going to be lots of artists doing, and doing virtual concerts, and March 26, 27, 28. And so that got me thinking about, I'm not going to do something for that because I've got other things, but they'll be showing these, some of these fractal videos that are talked about. But I've been actually, as of yesterday, I was online looking at this, the most popular webcam microphone setup for musicians, right? So for doing live work, but also doing, like music videos and that kind of thing. And so, because, it's hard to do that with an iPhone. You can do some, something, but something professional. And, I'd like to, I'm interested in doing something like that. So, yeah.
Thanks, Byron. Then just a couple more thank yous and then we'll complete. So Marcella said, thank you so much for all. I love your work and the amazing experiences that songs bring to everyone. And also a thank you from Karen for your talent and your inspiration. And from Sarah, thank you so much for your time and for putting your talents out for all of our inner healing journeys.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's my pleasure. I enjoy this. Well, as you can tell, I mean, I love talking about this stuff, and I love connecting with the wider community because where I live, it's kind of isolated out here, And so I love it. So thank you for showing up. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll complete at this point, and thank you all
Okay.
for participating today. And thank you, Byron, for
Thank
giving
you,
us
Michael.
your time and energy, and just you're just an incredibly inspirational human being. It really just opens my heart just to be in your presence and hear you
Yeah.
share your work. So thank you so
Great.
much.
Well, and I wanted to also thank you, but I also wanted to say that, people have follow-up questions or they want to, they just need to connect in some way, don't hesitate to contact me. So you can find me. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Byron. And thank
Okay.
you all for
Take care.
participating today.
All right.